Morning, y'all. Oh, look how pretty I am. 1,200 kilometers, not miles. Yesterday. Oh, a little tired. My ass is sore. But I'm at my son's house. I stayed here last night. It was pretty cool. He didn't know I was coming, which was really cool. I don't really know. I didn't really have a plan of anything to talk about, but I'm just gonna wing it. Ego is what I'm gonna talk about, I guess. I've been trying to release my ego in order to better know my soul. I think we're born as our soul. You could be pretty, you would be that person if there wasn't any influence from the world. You would be your own essence. But we throw in all these worldly things like your job and your sexual preferences or your possessions, your abilities or lack of, or of any of those things. And we kind of are taught that we need to measure up by having those things and not necessarily by having not by having a connection with yourself. So it's very difficult. It's difficult to live this way in our society when people hear about it. They get very defensive and or judgmental. They get defensive because they know that they don't listen to their soul. For the most part, a lot of people in our world have, and our society teaches us to not, to just fit into the box, right? So in order to fit into the box, you can't love your soul. You can't really treat it good and really look after it and help it to flower when you're inside of the box of whatever cool, smart, whatever box it is that you happen to, right? Because there's probably 3 boxes in our society. They want us all to fit into the one, but if you don't fit into that one, they've got another one that they'll try to force you into. And they'll say you got learning disabilities when it's their teaching inability that hinders them from catching your mind. So then they'll throw all these labels on you, beating you down and pushing you into that box, so that you'll never do what I'm doing, because that's dangerous. If a lot of people did what I do, they wouldn't have control. In order to really let go of your ego and become your soul, You gotta trust in God. You gotta have faith that God's gonna provide, not government. Right? Like everybody, not everybody, few people have bugged me to, well, why don't you get a welfare check or whatever? And no, that's not faith in God. That's faith in government. Going to, excuse me, Justin Trudeau isn't an option. And isn't faith. And without the faith part and that step out and trying to see something different, it's very scary, I gotta say. Like, it's not easy. It's terrifying to wake up and not, right? Not know where your day's gonna go, where your life's gonna go, where your retirement is, any of that stuff. But then it's also terrifying that, like, I know people whose retirement went from 85,000 to 72,000 in a week with all this COVID stuff. And now we're at war with Ukraine, and our economy is going to go way, way worse. So your retirement isn't going to be there in 2 years. That's gone. Even if you've got 20 million, half of that's going to be gone in a couple of years, right? Because they don't, if they're going to cut the world population by 7 billion people, or 6 billion people, sorry, plus, and everybody's going to own nothing and be happy, the people who own, like the Freemasons, who own a good amount right now, a couple million worth of assets and got cash in the bank and this and that, those people need to be bankrupted and put into the lower society and then starved out or whatever, and pushed into war and this and that, and just to wipe the population by that much, that's a lot. That's 6 out of every 7 people. That have to be exterminated and not replaced. No kids, right? So the big thing is stop the kids from being born. And they did that successfully recently, even though you don't know it. Not totally successfully, mind you, but 75%. Anyway, it's hard to explain what your soul is and why it's different than your ego, and why your ego stops you from being your soul. It's difficult to explain any of the things alchemy. This side of alchemy. The other side of alchemy is hard to teach as well, but it's, if you understand the essence of things, then you can start to break down and combine them in order to make new things, or better things, or healing things. My thing, I like to heal. But people want to make, lead into gold or whatever. So I don't really care about that. We need, right? The Philosopher's Stone and all that. But it's metaphorical. You don't, you know, you can make lead into gold by being the good businessman and making lead valuable to somebody, but also by getting out of society and devaluing gold. If gold doesn't stand anything in my life, then what's the difference between it and lead? It's already made into gold. Because what is gold? Right? It's a precious metal that's hard to find. It's got some conductive properties and whatnot. It's pretty, but really it's not. It's not gonna feed you. It's not gonna keep you alive. It's not gonna put a roof over your head when you're out in the woods by yourself. It's just a rock. So you've already made it as valuable as lead when you devalue it. But our society teaches it to be in so much of a value. It's like the voting thing where everybody thinks, oh, you have to vote, you know? It was a good system back then when it was created, but it's so manipulated and shit on now. At this point, it's not even recognizable. So people are monopolizing the American dream is just that. It's just a dream. You have to be sleeping to believe it. So, I don't know. It's just very difficult to just tell somebody this stuff as opposed to just, you gotta get out and actually experience some things and read a bunch of books and study a bunch of stuff, and then you'll just come to a better and new understanding, and you'll start to see things differently. So anyway, this side of alchemy is almost magic in a sense. It's when the alchemist talks about talking to the wind, communicating with the very earth, we can do that. It's there. It's possible. But you gotta know how. You gotta understand the language of it. It's not this language. Like when a dog talks to another dog, it's all physical. There is no this. So when you're talking to the earth, to the animals, to the creation, it's all physical. None of it's this. Obviously, we do this. But that's not how the world communicates to us. We're doing physical things I do physical things that I'm not even really aware. And then you can read the response of the earth. I know it sounds crazy, but it's not. It's very real. It's that lightning bolt that I always talk about. That's the main chain. That's the center. Witchcraft and demonologies and makeup and just all kinds of sciences. They're all branches off of it. But the main channel is just the communicating, the understanding. And once you do that, eventually you could run at a higher frequency. So that you're unkillable. So Christ was. Even though you killed the body, the frequency, that energy, just picked it back up and rebuilt it. You didn't destroy that. You can't. It can only go when it's at that level by itself. When you read like the book of Bartholomew, his energy was doing amazing things when it was taken from his body. He went right down into hell, grabbed Adam and all the apostles and took them to heaven. I still don't quite understand that, but I will soon. I'll get an epiphany of that understanding of how that actually went. It's very confusing. That other side to try to understand. It's just there. It's just behind that veil. And it's so simple to see, but it's not. There's so much of bullshit all around it with religions and the fakes and the manipulations. The Bible has obviously been manipulated because the Sabbath is set off the moons, and so is the calendar, and there's 13 months. It's the Roman calendar that's 12 months, so all the way back throughout the Bible and the Book of the Jews, it's all 12 months, so it's all been manipulated, right? At least that much. So how much more has it? And then we know that there was 14 books removed, or 13. So it's very confusing to try to figure and discern and understand which knowledge is actual knowledge when it comes to the spiritual side. But I think that God protected most of the Bible. I think a lot of it is real. But there were things that could be manipulated and therefore were. The calendar being one, and then the changing of language. If you change the meaning of a word, then you don't have to manipulate the Bible at all, because you've manipulated language, right? So it's a loophole. That's why they keep translating it, changing our language, and because words are so literal, especially in Hebrew, that we had to get away from those languages and into one that you could manipulate more and more and more. And English has been the worst. Slang and stuff like that. It's words are so strong, so powerful. You can do so much with them. They can do a lot to you too, so we gotta be careful. Our will is what's strong. And if you feed your will through words, your brain gets set that way. And then your will can change the world around you. Because you're in this frequency that the world has to link to. It's an attractive frequency, maybe, or something. I can't explain it. It's so complicated and simple. Anyway, very little chance, if you're worldly, that you'll understand anything that I think or talk about or whatever. It's like my minister's always going on about having sin in your life still, and he's saying, if you're saved, you don't go back to sin, blah blah, all this stuff. And he's wrong. He's in denial of his own sin, and sees it as something light. And, oh, well, it's not really a sin, to watch sports. I don't idolize any of the players over Christ, he says. So it's fine for me to get excited about watching the game. No, it's not. It's a distraction. It's violent, and it's competitive, and it's all the things that your soul doesn't want to be. Your soul, Christ, love, togetherness, compassion, forgiveness, right? Like, not in sports, especially football, right? So and it's a distraction to keep you from looking at the evil that's going on in the world around you. And even if you're still looking at that evil and you're trying to fight it, but then you're going to the distraction and giving it money and promoting it and helping others to see it, you're not helping any of those other people, and you're helping the enemy to promote his evil, right? So he's always going on about, oh, well, you're not saved if you want to go back to a sin over and over. If you can live dirty, blah blah blah. Well, you're living dirty. You're ratchet. But you're just not seeing it, and then you're judging others. I don't know. It's quite a... I smoke weed. That's my sin. That I don't really have any intention of letting go of, but maybe I will. Just so far I haven't, that's all. But through Christ I will. It's just, but it is the sin that I go back to, that I get comfort from, that doesn't really hurt anybody else, and isn't great for me, for sure, but it's not. There's a lot worse sin, right? So it's very minute, and none of us are Christ. Sorry, but you're not perfect, and you never will be. There's always going to be temptation of sin in your life, and the devil is crafty and smarter than you, smarter than your soul, and will defeat you in some ways. The thing is to dust off and try to fight again and to defeat him on most things. Right? So, I don't know. Anyway, that's just a rant I wanted to get off my chest for Pastor Omar Tribute. I can't say it now. I'm getting that wrong. He said my name funny too. Logan. Hogan. Something. It sounded weird coming out of his mouth. But, anyway. Yep. Anyway, my half hour's up. I'm gonna go be with my boy if he wakes up soon. And, y'all have a wonderful day.